purpose of this activity is to just practice a couple of little things. I know our test already happened, but I wanted to make sure that we got all that done before. Okay, so a little bit of vector stuff, drawing and calculating, a little bit of V equals D over T, easy stuff. Okay, so you've got your topographical map. You're actually going to have to take those three pieces together. I'll show you what they should look like in a minute. Okay, and that will represent the total area that we'll be dealing with. Okay, you are going to have to get to various locations on the map each day, and you have to plan your route. Okay, now you have to plan your route according to a few rules. Okay, the main rule is that you are on foot. You do not have a jetpack, a helicopter, climbing gear, a boat, or anything like that. You are on foot and on foot only. Okay? So your assignment first is to plan your route from one place to another. Okay, so what paths are you going to follow? I also made it so that you can't follow a path all the time. Okay, some of the destinations aren't on paths, so you have to actually go off trail sometimes. Okay, so some of the rules that you're going to have to obey, okay, or things you're going to have to think about if you've never used a topographical map before, okay, are on a topographical map, you'll see these little contour lines. Okay, those contour lines help you to figure out how steep the area you're looking at is. Okay, the further apart the lines are, the less steep it is. If you've got a whole bunch of lines right on top of each other, that's a cliff. Okay, you can't walk off the cliff, but you will live. Okay, you can't walk off the cliff, right? So you have to plan routes that don't involve you dying. Okay,
you can't climb cliff.
No, not without gear. Okay, not without gear.
Free solo.
No, that's dangerous. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're planning your route. Okay, don't be walking off cliffs. Okay, and things like that. Okay, the other thing you need to look at on this map is the colors. Anything that's green is what we would refer to as below the tree line. That means your trees. Okay, anything that's white is above the tree line. There are no trees. Okay, but you're at a higher altitude when you are above the tree line. Everybody follow me on that? Okay, so here are the rules that you have to obey. Rule number 1, altitude affects speed. If you are on the trail, okay, and trails, incidentally, okay, are the little dotted lines. Okay, so if you see dotted lines, okay, those are trails. If you're on one of those, okay, then you're on a trail, and you can walk at 1.5 meters per second. If you are on a trail above the tree line, you walk slower because there's less air and you get tired faster. You can only walk at 1.2 meters per second. Okay? Then there's the Bushwacker Rule. If you go off trail, it's a lot harder because there's no trail. You have to bushwhack. Okay? So if you are off trail below the tree line, you walk considerably slower. Okay? Because there's bushes and branches and all kinds of crap in your way. Okay, so you go much slower. If you're above the tree line, you can actually walk faster. Because while there's no trail, there's also no trees and crap to get in your way. Okay, so keep those speeds in mind. I'll show you why they're going to be important in a minute. And then thirdly is the silly salmon rule. Stream crossings should not be taken lightly. Anytime you have to cross a stream, you have to add 15 minutes to your total time, unless you are on a trail. If you cross a stream on a trail, there will be a bridge. Okay? If you are off trail and crossing a stream, 15 minutes every time you do this. Okay? All right. So, what you have to do on this map, first off, is plan your route. Then you need to measure some things. You need to measure your total distance traveled for each day. Right? The best way to do that is to take either like a headphone cable, okay, or a shoelace, okay, or something that you can make take the shape of your path. Okay, because you can't measure a curve with a ruler. Okay, so you just make your headphone cable take the shape of your path, then pinch each end and straighten it. Put it on the ruler. Now you've measured how far you walked, okay, even though it wasn't a straight line. All right, so you'll need to do that to measure your distance. You will also need to measure your displacement for each day. How will that look on your map? A straight line from the start of that day to the end of that day. All right, so what we're going to be looking at here is, for example, if I want to go from start to point number 1 here, there's actually a trail that runs along the river. So I would draw this line, and that would represent my distance. And I would measure that using the headphone cable or shoelace or whatever. Okay? My displacement would be this line. Okay? A straight line from start to finish, which would then also have a y component and an x component, which I could then use to calculate the angle at which I travel, or the direction, because displacement is, after all, a vector quantity, and that's something I would need to know. Right? I can measure all those lines with a ruler. Okay? So each day, I should see something like that. Okay? Your actual path, your displacement, and its y and x components. Now, how do you know if you make these perfectly vertical and perfectly horizontal? Yeah, there's grid lines on the map. Just make them parallel to the grid lines. Do your best. Okay. Other things I'm going to want to see. Average speed and average velocity for each day. In order to calculate those, you'll also need the total time for each day. Now, how do you get the total time? Well, let's say that I'm walking down here, right, and I walk below the tree line like this, and then I walk above the tree line for a little while, and then I walk back below the tree line to here. I'm not saying you would do that because that's not part of the assignment. You're all up here. But, okay, what I have is I know how fast I walked here because it was below the tree line and off trail. I also know how far I walked here because it was also below the tree line and off trail. Can I figure out how long each one of those takes if I know how long they are and how fast I did them? Right, it's just B equals D over T. Same for this black line. I know how fast I can walk above the tree line off trail, and I know how far this is, so I can figure out how long it takes. Okay? So a good idea is to use different colors to show the different speeds at which you travel. It's easier to keep track of them and get your total time. Right? Now, I did actually cross a river here. Okay? I crossed a river there, and I crossed a river here. Okay, so I'd have to add, I crossed a river there, and I think right there. So 15, a half an hour, 45 minutes. I had add an extra hour for all my stream crossings onto that. Okay, so an extra 3,600 seconds. Okay, onto my total time for the day. Okay, incidentally, I want it all in seconds and meters. Okay, I want kilometers and miles. I gave you meters per second for times and speeds. Keep it all that way. Okay. So for each day, this is what I want to see. And you got to make sure you show this because these are easy marks. If you forget to do them, you're going to lose big marks. Okay? So each day I want to see calculations of distance, speed, displacement, velocity, and time. All right? So day 1, total time. Day 1, total distance. Day 1, total displacement. Day 1, average velocity. Day 1, average speed. I want to see that for every single day. Okay? We're not counting in sleep. Okay? Just the time you're on trail. Okay? Triangles drawn on the map, okay, and your path. Everybody follow me there. Okay? So I'm going to want to see on your map what I showed you here. Okay? Your paths and your triangle for each day. Okay? Calculations of total distance, total displacement, and total time on trail. Only count your traveling time, not hours sleeping. Okay? And average velocity for the entire trip. Okay? Your entire trip starts here and ends here at 5. Okay? You are not going back to the start because that would be too easy. Your total displacement would then be, right, that's why we're not doing it. Okay? So you have to end here at 5. Okay? All right, so those are the things I want to see, okay? So for each day, 5 things, and then these things for the total trip, okay? Your group will also hand in your map with your calculations, okay? And I already talked about the color coding. All right, here's the other thing you need to know. The scale on the map is 1 to 50,000. That means 1 centimeter on the map is 500 meters of walking. Okay, so when you're doing your measurements, you're going to measure in centimeters, multiply that by 500, and you've got your number of meters. Okay, everybody good with that? Okay. So it's out of 20 marks. 15 of those are your map, your calculations, showing me everything that I've listed there. The other 5 marks, how nicely you work and play with others. As long as there's no kicking, scratching, or biting, okay, you're generally pretty good, unless I have to constantly be getting you back on task. All right, everybody understand what they're doing? I'm going to bring out some meter sticks so you can measure, okay, and you can get started.
No one noticed.
Hey, meter sticks are on the table. Come over. Oh,
Okay, ready? Okay, I'll do that.
Did one of the groups grab my tape? Okay, so the tape is right here, guys. Just come and grab a few pieces so you can tape those maps together. You may,
Oh, grab it. There's
listening please, you may, and by you may you will, want to cut off the little white strips on the side so that you can get them to butt up against each other properly. Get smacked.
And scissors. Get scissors. And scissors means. Can we get 0? Tape. No,
I got the tape.
Okay, well, I acted on it and I got the Okay, I'm like this. I'm literally carrying.
Yeah, actually does that.
Okay, no, you're gonna watch like that.
Okay. Which group has the tape right now? Why did you grab the whole thing?
We're gonna open it. I had to take it. I had to act on it.
Whoa!
We can just go over She did it with